Itachi Uchiha and Nagato Uzumaki were Kabuto's two most pivotal and strongest reanimations other than Madara, and Orochimaru used his very own reanimations and ended up creating the first four Hokage to combat these reanimations. So what would happen if the Hokage were split up and Nagato and Itachi were sent to hunt them down? Could Nagato and Itachi actually win this battle, or do the Hokage still remain supreme at the top of the shinobi world? Now, for another preface, since these characters will all be Edo Tensei, they can simply kill each other to avoid the "but Tobirama can't seal them though" arguments, of course. And Itachi's Totsuka blade and stuff like this can still seal them prior to them killing them, obviously, or any other sealing jutsu that would be used in character. Itachi and Nagato are obviously going to be, in the power disadvantage going into this, so they could have the infinite chakra as implied by Kabuto and Madara, with some people thinking this only pertains to Madara, but Kakuzu's 4th data book does state that he has endless chakra when reanimated, so they could just have the stamina advantage for sure, but I just go into it with that being said. And let's begin with the section of where Itachi and Nagato actually scale to other characters in the war arc and in relation to each other. And firstly, I really do want to say that the comparisons between both Itachi and Nagato is not really as cut and dry as it's been made out to be. Like, for example, during the comparisons you can really make, both characters are suppressed, especially Itachi, with this concept being probably the most important thing to note whenever talking about Edo Itachi and taking him into account. And this is very blatantly shown during the Kabuto fight, with Itachi never really taking on the complete Susanoo, but only utilizing a suppressed and less evolved state, unless the situation ever called against that. The first example is right when Kabuto tries to attack Sasuke and Itachi with snakes, and Itachi only goes into his V2 skeletal Susanoo, doing this specifically for the reason that this form actually gives him extra arms. Then Sasuke ends up slicing one of the snakes, and Itachi tells him not to be so aggressive. They have to hold back to avoid killing Kabuto, supporting why Itachi would be holding back and not at full power in this encounter. This is further emphasized later in the bout where Itachi and Sasuke are in their V1 Susanoo states, and Kabuto has these webs coming from all directions, and Sasuke vows to just take the ones behind them, and Itachi takes the ones in front, and Sasuke is forced to combat these with his Amaterasu, and Itachi simply just slightly evolves to a higher Susanoo and swipes them away, both demonstrating how Itachi is so unwilling to ever necessarily use the MS or techniques of it, with him still being able to hold back and combo attack and match EMS Sasuke with the later portion of this fight and him being stronger, supporting how Sasuke just now surpasses Itachi as the data book state, likely meaning that through a majority of this bout, Sasuke and Itachi were very close to equals, with Itachi still being suppressed and holding back, yet still shows these speed feats such as him reacting to the Susanoo arm, out to reach, Sasuke faster than Sasuke can actually evade, using genjutsu on each other at the same speed, and the efficiency of all their combos and multi-stage step plans being performed perfectly in unison, with Itachi again being suppressed and having to protect Sasuke. This Sasuke being so strong that later he would actually go on to combat Obito alongside KCM 1.5 Naruto, being arguably superior than such when they were running alongside, as Sasuke actually told Naruto to go all out and he will simply just match him for the combo, with Sasuke Susanoo also being able to not only equal out the effects of a true Singing Orb, but also save Naruto's life, with the narrative for these two being, mirroring parallels to who Minato and Tobirama were as Hokage, which is an interesting narrative that I'll come back to in a minute. But for now, I'll just say that Itachi probably could still keep up with this EMS Sasuke level, but it's just a little unquantifiable, as we know that Sasuke gets rather angry with Tobirama's remarks about the Uchiha, potentially increasing his hate, and then Sasuke for him to then grow even stronger. But you could also say that, he lost Zetsu, so maybe he got weaker. But either way, Itachi scaling above a normal KCM1 Naruto isn't outlandish, similar to this fight with Kabuto. In this one, Itachi was also suppressed, holding back the MS, yet still being able to parry off KCM1 Naruto whilst both were talking, and hence Killer Bee, noticing this, decided he would need to aid Naruto and attempted to slice straight through Itachi while he wasn't even fully on the ground, still kicking Naruto, and then Bee just swings his sword, and before the swing even stops, Itachi straight up jumps out of the way, covering a much more substantial distance, and doing this jump another 3 times before Bee ever turns around or moves at all. With this being said, for KCM1 Naruto, so I mean, yes, this could be a potentially weakened Naruto just due to how he's talking and whatnot, but Itachi is also just much more suppressed and much faster, as shown in these early sequences. And keep this in mind, as Itachi is then able to travel this distance again so fast that he blitzes behind Killer Bee, and even has to tell him, behind you. Then Killer Bee notes his presence and swipes Samehada, to which Itachi just evades, uses fire style that can even hurt Bee, and then genjutsus him in the air, forcing Bee to use his Sharingan counter move, being his 8-sword style, with Itachi then just parrying off over 10 strikes and then just kind of weaving him at the end. This all being in his 3 Tomoe state, may I mind you, which Nagato is very comparable to, with Nagato being able to not only sense and warn, Naruto when Itachi is funneling chakra into his eye without his sensory mode, but also is able to use his almighty push to intercept Bee's sword. And this is still a grayed hair weakened Nagato, may I mind you, and yes, this needs to be accounted for, as when considering how Itachi then just blitzes the animal path with a Matarasu, causing more damage than Naruto's durability negating Rasen Shuriken, then proceeding to blitz Nagato with it point blank whilst in MS, supporting that Nagato in his gray-haired state is probably weaker than a 3 Tomoe Itachi, and certainly weaker than MS Itachi. And this is very crucial when, considering our characters can kill each other here, and Itachi would have killed Nagato if Kabuto didn't save him. Then supporting how Nagato is just kind of objectively above Bee and Naruto, Bee enters the V2 a much faster state and tries to blitz Nagato, and Nagato just reacts and absorbs the cloak off of him, with him now being much closer to a full power self, with the only exception being him not using the Rinnegan Sensory, which just isn't even necessary considering how he casually caught KCM1 Naruto in the air, soul sucked him, with him also just absorbing the Rasengan instantly, supporting how Nagato is much closer to a peak Tendo using every single path at once. Even Bee, trying to do the same strategy that they did with Itachi, then tries to fly down and catch Nagato off guard, but then gets spotted by the chameleon, giving Nagato the easy advantage and then catching him as well. This being an even more serious base Bee than before, with him now using lightning release on his sword, yet Nagato, using the Ashura path, just catches him with the extra 2 arms, capable of fully restraining him, and attempts to blow his face off. This technique is actually pretty powerful for AoE, by the way, and will definitely come in handy for this battle, and I guess just for Itachi and Nagato to control the battlefield, as this headcanon, I guess, if you want to call it that, could just like decimate big parts of Konoha. Then, as soon as Naruto's soul is nearly extracted, Itachi comes out of nowhere after blitzing the summons with kunai and completely swipes through Nagato's hold on Bee and Naruto with his V3 Susanoo. Again, not his most powerful form, with this Susanoo also just ripping Nagato's arm off and the chameleon's tongue straight off. Itachi then, has a hold of Bee and Naruto with a grip so strong that Bee and Naruto do have tension lines indicating that they are trying to get free here, but just aren't strong enough to do so. It should also be noted that Nagato's pupils never get dilated during this entire fight, indicating how Nagato is never fully utilized by Kabuto to actually go all out, implying that he probably could have done better if they were active. And then Nagato, seeing the V3 Susanoo, decides he needs to use his strongest attack, being the Chubaku Tensei, which, this Chubaku Tensei is much stronger than the one that was held up against Naruto originally in the Pain arc, as Pain was so weakened and fatigued that, this move was nearly impossible to ever pull off in character, and it literally just crumbles if any damage is really taken to it. And now Itachi and Nagato have a virtually ever regenerating pool of chakra, so this technique can come out much more against the Hokage, and it can come out much more without them having to sacrifice much. And this technique was taken down by an even more suppressed Itachi, with him now firing only 3 Yasuka beads. Within the Kabuto fight, he actually uses 4 at a time, and Naruto using his Rasen Shuriken and Bee using the Bijou Bomb, the Bijou Bomb being a technique that the 3rd Raikage survived, and Naruto's Rasen Shuriken messed him up, and even the Sage Rasengan ends up cracking his arm, and now we know that Itachi's Amaterasu scales above the Rasen Shuriken from earlier, so by all means, Itachi just does have these means to kind of take down the Chubaku Tensei and attacks as such, but, was just suppressed. So maybe if Nagato wasn't suppressed, then it would have held up, and Itachi just kind of then pseudo blitzes him after with the Totsuka Blade, with this only really happening due to how the Rinnegan Sensory wasn't active, with him not being able to see through the smoke, yet during his bout with Sage Jiraiya, he actually could. So, I mean, the conclusion for this would just be that both Nagato and Itachi are stronger than what was led on, and are very comparable, with both also just being far above KCM1 Naruto and Killer Bee, respectively, at their peak states, with Itachi and 3 Tomoe being greater than KCM1, and then Itachi blitzes a suppressed Nagato who's a blitz level above them. So at their peaks, they're just way above this level, potentially even breaching that EMS Sasuke level, with their many abilities also playing a key factor, and many potential combo attacks that we just never really saw, such as a Bancho Tenin into the Totsuka Blade, or having the Chameleon grab the Hokage with his tongue for Itachi then hit it with a Matarasu, or Itachi Susanoo to maybe hold them while Nagato uses his Soul Suck ability. Maybe even Itachi would just hold them and then just use the Yadamir to protect his own Susanoo, as Nagato just fires the missiles and lasers, just, whatever. But there really are just a lot of avenues for these attacks. Anyway, apologies for this long-winded segment, but I just had to talk about it here, as I don't really want to bring it up too much later. But anyway, on to the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. Beginning with Hashirama Senju, the god of shinobi, he is just that, a god of shinobi, with even Orochimaru noting upon his introduction just how different he really is, implying that he can not only break the Edo Tensei, but is also just above Minato, Hiruzen, and Tobirama, who probably couldn't. Tobirama, the witch, was stated to have dulled in his senses by Hashirama, implying that Hashirama's senses probably haven't, or at least as much. This being consistent with how even him arriving last to the battlefield, his arrival still had Edo Madara beginning to literally sweat at his presence, something never really happening during his battle with the 5 Kage, who he simply toyed with. And while the 5 Kage aren't that strong compared to Itachi and Nagato, I mean, this is Itachi, who's blatantly stronger than a peak 5 Kage such as Sasuke, who could bat them all, but Hashirama is still just in a higher echelon of power. It also doesn't help that this Hashirama, whilst reanimated, is much less hesitant to enter his Sage mode, as shown when he does it basically off start to restrain the Ten Tails with his Deity Gates. These Deity Gates are also just so strong that they are able to not only hold the Ten Tails and tank its Bijou Bombs, but they are also able to last even to Minato's era, with them still being just roaming around the village, sitting in random spots. So, coupled with their ability to suppress the will and fight, and to just restrain chakra as a whole, enough to even hold Edo Madara to a standstill, these should be very effective on either Itachi or Nagato if it were to actually land. Maybe Nagato would be able to counter these by or at least counter them whilst they're dropping down, potentially using the Shenra Tensei to just change their trajectories, with them, with them taking a blast that had Naruto, who by this point has used KCM2 and battled Obito, saying just how the past Hokage were truly just incredible individuals. This being corroborated by the sideline joining later, with them just being extremely shocked at the capacity of Hashirama and Madara, with them deciding that if they joined in, nothing would even change and they would just get in the way. I mean, they weren't wrong. The Wood Golem is just on another level, being equal, and able to combat the perfect Susanoo on equal footing. Hashirama could also just make several clones in this fight to help overwhelm Itachi, and Nagato with this strategy probably isn't really the best, as Madara, while sitting down, said Hashirama's clones offer no resistance, which probably is evident to the idea that Itachi and Nagato aren't so much weaker to where these clones could just win. I think their best bet is just to say that Chubaku Tensei, and say that Hashirama doesn't have any resistance. However, he could very well just use his wood style to push himself away. This wood style being so fast, it was even able to combo and outspeed Tobirama's tandem paper bombs when he threw up the right hand tiger sign. So the Totsuka Blade is Nagato and Itachi's only real answer. However, considering how Hashirama skills to Madara, who skills above a KCM2 Naruto much more concretely than either Itachi or Nagato possibly could, Hashirama likely just wouldn't get hit by these, or could just use several different avenues to win this battle, such as just restraining them with the Deity Gates, using his wood style, or just simply using the Deep Forest Emergence to prevent them from using their full capabilities, inevitably killing Itachi and Nagato, meaning that to nobody's surprise, Hashirama passes. The only way this doesn't really happen is, I guess, just dependent on how fast Koto Amatsu Kami comes out, or if it does. If you subscribe to the idea that Itachi and Nagato could get too pressed and keep up for a minute to where they could actually realize they need Koto, and then Itachi uses it, and that is kind of relying on the fact that they could keep up for a minute just to realize, alright, he's too strong. But anyway, that's just an additional way that Itachi and Nagato could win, but otherwise, probably just not going to happen, and Hashirama is going to clean house. Now, Before we discuss arguably the most controversial character on this list, Tobirama, I would like to ask you guys, if you are enjoying this video or what you've heard, then by all means, please consider subscribing, as it would help me out and my channel a lot. But anyway, kicking Tobirama's section off with what kind of caliber he truly is. As while some people believe I don't like Tobirama, this just isn't the case. I mean, he's my channel avatar, but his caliber of shinobi is really impressive, as he's not only comparable to the other Hokage, as implied when they leave the battlefields. It stated that the Hokage are the biggest of the big fish. This is with characters like KCM2 Naruto, EMS Sasuke, and Kakashi all being on the battlefield, implying that the Hokage who are joining the battlefield are probably the most crucial point of the war and the crucial fighters for the war for the alliance side. And Tobirama is by no means the weakest of the four, with his showings being either just as good or potentially even better than Hiruzen's, who we'll get into later. But there is just some narrative I mentioned earlier, and I think it's very important for understanding Tobirama's power in comparison to KCM 1.5 Naruto, EMS Sasuke, and dazed Minato. And it's the idea that Sasuke by this point just revealed his new revolutionary philosophy, wanting to radically change not only Konoha but the world, being willing to use whatever means necessary to make this happen. Then on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's Naruto, the bright, hopeful change the world needs, the one implied to be the savior, being much more reliant on peace brings peace ideas, and not just, you know, these utilitarian outlooks that Sasuke has, with him striving to be Hokage to change the world as well. So what's the narrative here? Well, this is why Hashirama is split, to show Tobirama and Minato, two people who parallel who Naruto and Sasuke are at this time and who they could become. Tobirama representing Sasuke, Tobirama being called nearly evil by many people, yet all of this was to ensure that no more of his family had to die. No one else had to suffer the tragedy that he did, the darker, more edgy Hokage, this being a direct parallel to Sasuke, with Minato also being called the child of prophecy and a golden child, just like Naruto, one with the, you know, brighter ambitions to change the world and be Hokage, with this dazed Minato and Tobirama comboing together on several occasions and leading the team on more than one occasion, this representing how Tobirama and this dazed Minato are very comparable, yet just objectively greater or on a higher level than EMS Sasuke and KCM 1.5 Naruto, as they are still kind of striving to reach this level. Even in their initial scuffle with Obito, you can see how Tobirama is capable of somehow getting the bombs on Obito, and while this is heavily contentious, and I've stated my opinion on this matter numerous times, I don't think Tobirama placed all these bombs, just ran around Mortal Kombat Blitz style, but there is still a testament that Tobirama can at least perceive these attacks that Naruto is just having a lot of trouble with, as noted when he says he can't keep up with them. This is very consistent, as we can see once Naruto and Sasuke decide to actually take the lead, they then run at full speed, and Tobirama can both perceive and react to them fairly easily, being able to transport himself behind Obito, with him also just being able to perceive Minato even faster, you know, his even faster flying Thunder God, and react to him, with Minato also just doing the same, with the data book implying that for this combo, they have to be perfectly in sync. This is pretty important considering how sneakily Tobirama actually fights, with him using these dirty tactics all the time, such as him waiting for Jubito's back to be in smoke to then hit him with Naruto's Sage Rasengan, or how Madara implies he always strikes when his opponent is, you know, isn't on guard and is just sure of victory. This could also allude to Tobirama being willing to potentially try to play on Itachi's emotions with the death of the Uchiha and his persecution of them. Now, I will say, when you look at this, we have this, like, in terms of speed, right, we have these two characters who are just way above KCM1 Naruto, and a character who is just above KCM 1.5 Naruto in speed, of course, so they could most certainly keep up with each other in terms of speed, as I do think the speed gaps in Naruto are almost always overstated. So yes, Tobirama does, you know, have the advantage, but won't just be blitzing them to shreds, but certainly, again, will be faster than them. One of the second Hokage's best speed feats is a testament to his flying Raijin activation speed, as he is able to perceive characters like Madara and then react to it mentally, allowing him to dodge his attack. And of course, he does get overwhelmed with there just being too much of a speed disparity, with that disparity being almost in the opposite direction, with Tobirama now having greater speeds than Itachi and Nagato, and then hence a even higher margin of error just through this. So attacks like the Amaterasu, for example, can be evaded much easier due to him having this technique, on top of things like his sensory on par with Minato that he used to actually locate the entire Kinkaku unit just prior to dying. So with this margin of air and reaction speed being clearly stated to where, being clearly stated when his movement speed really isn't, where is Tobirama's raw combat speed, and is it actually fast enough to be able to engage in Nagato in a taijutsu scuffle with all the Ashura arms, missiles, and the soul extraction and ninjutsu absorption all just being in play at once? So to answer this, it's sort of complicated. Many people have concluded that Tobirama's combat speed is just above Madara's combat speed due to how Madara states Tobirama used to boast the fastest speed of any shinobi, but I do have my problems with this statement. But one debunk I hear for it all the time is fairly dishonest in my opinion, and it's the boast just means that he kind of talked about it all the time, not that he actually had it. And this is just kind of dishonest, as how the word boast here is being used contextually follows the idea that he actually possessed this speed, which is consistent as many databook files also use the word boast to assert a possession of a trait, even like non-sentient attacks possessing attributes of speed or power, just sort of alluding to this isn't Tobirama bragging about his speed. So yes, Madara is saying this literally, but the problem I find with this statement is what Madara is actually basing this claim off of. And it's actually the last time Tobirama fought. In that battle, Madara was actually facing Hashirama, and when he looked over to check on Izuna, a close second rival to himself, he sees Tobirama blitzing straight through him and cutting him open. So during the Warring States period, Tobirama could have been faster than Madara due to his own, thinking, due to things like the FTG and not really knowing what happened contextually. And this is Tobirama also probably just holding back, as we could see his blade is facing the wrong direction. But regardless, we just know that anything past this point, Tobirama is not on the level, as we can see that Tobirama is much more relative to someone like base Hashirama, as they can combo attack together against both Obito and Old Man Hiruzen. Yet Madara states that Hashirama is the only one who's an even match for Madara, with Madara being far inferior to Hashirama in terms of their large-scale ninjutsu clash. Yet the fourth data book states the two shinobi were nearly equals, with the difference in power being paper thin, pointing to the taijutsu scuffle on screen. At the end, this is consistent, as we know Madara and his EMS engaged Hashirama with his Sage Mode in Taijutsu, and then we just cut to this showing of Hashirama being much more damaged than Madara, as shown by images like these, with Hashirama having a healing factor that is in play, as we could see him regenerate the bite. So Madara is probably much closer or likely superior to Sage Hashirama in Taijutsu, as he would just have to make up for the inferiority of those ninjutsu clashes. This just alluding that Tobirama is very comparable to base Hashirama in Taijutsu, just not a EMS Madara or Sage Hashirama. If you are a really big fan of Tobirama, then the anime subcredit animations have Tobirama like having a full-on like taijutsu scuffle with Madara in the war, so take that with what you will, but it is just like an anime outro. Tobirama is still pretty impressive, as I mentioned earlier, with him also just being able to combo attack with base Hashirama whilst both suppressed in their fight with Hiruzen and in the war arc, with the anime having Tobirama arrive at the battlefield before base Hashirama, meaning that in terms of just taijutsu, Tobirama could possibly scale to these heights, sort of supporting the caliber of shinobi I mentioned earlier, with this caliber being again superior to what Itachi and Nagato have shown demonstrably. We do know that Itachi does have the Sharingan and Nagato has the Rinnegan, which allow the users to actually see when characters are building up chakras. This means things like flying rising attacks are going to be able to, able to be seen easier, giving them advantages in this margin of error as well, similar to Tobirama. So in all honesty, I think Tobirama very well could take on Nagato or Itachi individually, just based on like his scaling, but as a duo, this certainly becomes significantly more difficult for him, as he does have things like, he has like a very potent water style, for example. However, most of Tobirama's water style ninjutsu really just don't have the showings to place them anywhere, such as when he uses Severing Wave to cut the God Tree roots. This just isn't really anything, as even Enma rips straight through them. He does have many water style jutsu listed in the data book that just aren't shown, but that's exactly the problem. They aren't shown. The best one is Tobirama's water pellets that Madara blocked with a Susanoo form, like covering his arm, potentially implying a level of potency for them, or Madara could have just been stunting on them. But however, considering how similar to Severing Wave the data book mentions there is a buildup of chakra in the mouth and the stomach that's then fired out, this would have just been noticed by Nagato and Itachi, allowing them for them to have either Itachi just use the Yadamir or have Nagato just absorb the water style. The water style's main use, here I guess could just be stopping the mini fire style ninjutsu that Itachi could use, such as his, Phoenix Flower Jutsu, capable of damaging Killer Bee, or his basic fireball technique that's actually fairly underrated, being reinstated in the 10-year anniversary guide to actually be the hottest of any fire style jutsu. Even at the age of 12, during the second Itachi Shinden novel, Itachi's fireball was already rivaling his father and Shisui at the peak of the clan, just having the peak size of fireballs. So having a style advantage is definitely going to help Tobirama's case more than others, although it's still fairly debatable whether it could actually stop or overpower this fire style. Now, one jutsu he does have is his legendary tandem paper bombs, which is very powerful, but we are made aware that the Yadomir has no trouble blocking paper bombs to begin with, so it very well could here as well. Or maybe Nagato just uses Chobaku Tensei, forcing Tobirama and the multiplying tags to then just be drawn away from Nagato and Itachi, allowing them for them to even replace themselves to not take as much damage, and then kind of reevaluate the opponent here. I will say this match is heavily contentious on how much faster you think KCM 1 is to KCM 1.5 and the speed disparity between Tobirama and Itachi and Nagato. If you think Tobirama is faster than by a decent margin, then he should be able to capitalize and eventually kill both Itachi and Nagato. And if you think Itachi and Nagato together are relative to Tobirama or even faster, then they do have many more avenues of victory just due to them having two of the most busted arsenals in the series that we've ever seen. So, with just so many win cons such as the Totsuka Blade of Matarasu, Chobaku Tensei, or just chakra absorbing Tobirama until he runs out of stamina, as they do have more chakra, I will say there are a lot of avenues, but not to beat a dead horse. Maybe if you really do subscribe to Tobirama's Waterlands being implied to actually negate durability, or just subscribe to the higher ends for tandem paper bombs, then by all means give him the victory. And so for here, I'll just say that it could lean either way, just giving an edge to Tobirama due to the speed scaling that I'm not really trying to get death threats from, but it could go either way. So in my opinion, I'd say 6 out of 10 times Tobirama wins. If you subscribe to the speed disparity, and for my personal opinion, Itachi and Nagato could also just take it more than not, honestly, now that I think about it, with them just having more win cons such as Tsukiyomi, giving them maybe a 6 out of 10 victory rate over Tobirama. So yeah, this is a really close match, and I really do like that. So it could go either way, but the arguments are there. Following up that, we have Tobirama's successor, the famed god of shinobi, similar to Hashirama, the famed possessor Hiruzen Sarutobi, a title given to him since he actually knew and was aware of every jutsu in Konoha. And while this statement of him actually using them all or being capable of such is mistranslated, he is still implied to just be at the top of the shinobi world, such as Kabuto and the fanbook stating how he is above the 5 Kage, standing at the top of the world, with the shinobi mini guide written by Kishimoto stating that Hiruzen is at the peak of the shinobi world. However, what is a title like this, to characters like Itachi and Nagato? Sure, Hiruzen outperforms the 5 Kage in the war, but what is this to the 2 strongest Akatsuki members? Not much. However, this likely just isn't the end-all be-all for Hiruzen. One thing many people bring up for Tobirama is his raw intelligence, with him being arguably the smartest Hokage alongside Minato, and, this would just be due to how Tobirama created the educational system for Konoha, being the ninja academy that lasts and remains relevant even over 5 decades later. However, this isn't really true. While Tobirama did create the academy, the official mini shinobi guide elaborates on the reason Tobirama did this, and it's simply that in the draining war, or the draining havoc, I guess, that the first war really brought upon Konoha, shinobi were just so scarce that he had to create this system to breed these children into battle, and the system was implied to have had flaws, and that's where Hiruzen came in to also just fix it and perfect the academy. This granting Hiruzen an intellectual presence that isn't just brought up all that often when it probably should be. But what does he have to actually use this intellect? What physical skilling does he have? Well, we know that Hiruzen does show relativity to Tobirama in some small regards, at least in terms of speed, such as when Obito was charging at him from a large distance and Hiruzen tried to counter, this with his large shuriken, which Obito simply just cut straight through. Now, yes, this sequence does have, Hiruzen reacting, denoting things like, how it's a change over 4 natures, and it's likely fundamentally similar to Inoki's dust release. He also is able to just duck out of the way to evade this, but he does still get hit in the left shoulder just due to this speed disparity in play. However, this speed feat is very similar to Tobirama's bomb feat, in which there's just a large distance and Tobirama can move in a few different ways, and while his legs couldn't have moved due to his and Hashirama's trajectory still being the same, he could have just brought his arm up and, dispersed the bombs like this or whatnot. But in Hiruzen's case, you could give an advantage since there is like another layer of speed being added, of course being the TSO, also extending. So of course there isn't really a one-for-one comparison here with Tobirama, but I think you could present arguments like this that just help hammer home the idea that Hiruzen could probably just keep up with Tobirama, at least on a low end if you're being like generous to Tobirama. Now, there is a speed feed of him supposedly like blitzing Tobirama and KCM2 Minato to rescue Naruto from the God Tree roots, but this just isn't true. While this gives us more like Enma feat, I guess, we really have no clue where Hiruzen was before this. We have no clue if he was closer to Tobirama, and we know for a fact that, that Tobirama is much more fatigued here, as of course Orochimaru's reanimations get fatigued, and Tobirama has been fighting and active in this bout for several chapters, leading the charge, and Hiruzen has been kind of nowhere, as he has just been Darth Mauled by Obito. So there is no way to actually quantify or prove if Hiruzen actually outsped Tobirama, which just isn't likely in my opinion, and it's kind of disingenuous to say such. And the final feat in the war, I know bro is always gone, but he has like 3 feats, but it's essentially him just saving and equaling out the Guru Yamato statue and saving the 5 Kage that was just previously overpowering the 5 Kage, who did get their chakra regenerated. Each of the ninjutsu are done with a clone, and I must say, for the record, Hiruzen could have just used the counter elements, but instead just used the same ones to look cool, but whatever. This just being another feat to show that Hiruzen is still a 5 Kage level combatant. Now, Hiruzen feats are pretty impressive, but what showings could be actually used whilst alive to see what version was truly brought back? And for those who watch my content, or know that one of my main arguments for Hiruzen is always how this has to be Konoha Crush Hiruzen, as Hiruzen here has 4 to 5 wrinkles, which is exactly how many he has during part 1, yet in every flashback of the Uchiha Massacre, despite being over 100 chapters apart each, Hiruzen has 3 wrinkles, with him having 2 wrinkles during the Ninetales attack. So considering is Konoha Crush Hiruzen with the 4 to 5 wrinkles, but without the chakra restraints, he still scales above the 5 Kage and stands atop the ninja world, as we talked about earlier with that alive scaling. And so with this scaling and his like 3 feats, could he actually take down Itachi and Nagato? And okay, to be honest, probably not. Hiruzen's best feat is most of his battles is always like his ninjutsu, right? It's always his best argument, and his ninjutsu, like the flame bombs, for example, that are implied to be the strongest fire style attack, or his 5 natures that are just greater than the 5 Kage. But here, with the speed feats presented, we don't really have a case to say that he is above or equal to Tobirama in speed, just that he could be near him if you're generous. And this is a problem, and this means that Nagato, should have no problem reacting to these nature releases and simply absorbing them to amp himself even more. If you're being super awkward about it, then, maybe you think they're relative to Nagato in speed, and but he was just able to low-key just react to Bee's movement speed, which is greater than his own, to actually absorb the cloak, amping himself. So considering how Nagato is just narratively stronger than Pain, now fighting KCM1 Naruto, feats like Preda Path, catching the big ball Rasengan from Sage Jiraiya, just kind of have to be mentioned, as this Hiruzen, from this Orochimaru fight is still on that, Sannin caliber, and this just shows, how Itachi and Nagato kind of long surpassed that area. Now, all of this ninjutsu could also just get negated by the Yadamir, and for those skeptical about the Yadamir, as I have brought it up several times, the reason I think it can function on things stronger than what it's been seen to do is just kind of based on its fundamentals, this being a shield that senses, matches, and counters every exact property of an oncoming attack to then repel or nullify the attack. So Hiruzen's ninjutsu is practically just null and void. His best bet here would be using Enma in either a separate way to just kind of help fight the animal summons, which is something present in all of the fights thus far, and since Enma is stated to be the strongest summon in the fan book, he could just act as a partner, which is implied as well, to then go on and fight as his own, to then fight the animal summons, keeping them off. But I mean, this doesn't really matter, as even if they are separated, this just means that Hiruzen absolutely has to enter the fight with his anti-Sharingan techniques, and this is probably going to make him even slower and whatnot, as this is just him just looking at the feet, and him looking at the feet is just an awful idea when fighting somebody like Itachi, as even Itachi's weaker genjutsu such as demonic illusion shackling states could even paralyze Orochimaru, who Hiruzen is relative to. So similar to all the fights before, Tsukiyomi is a death trap for Hiruzen, which when you couple this with the idea that Hiruzen doesn't have anything to bypass the Susanoo, as he can't really use ninjutsu, when cons like Itachi simply firing Yasuke beads at him or poking him with the Totsuka blade become very likely. And just to be honest, as I mentioned earlier, Nagato will be aiding him here, allowing for more combo attacks like Nagato using Bancho Tenin to pull Hiruzen into the Totsuka blade, or the Shinra Tensei to kind of push him away at all times, since the speed disparity isn't really there anymore. And this time around, Itachi and Nagato are arguably faster. Nagato could just also engage this like how he did with Naruto and Bee, and just kind of grab him with the Ashura Path, using his Soul Snatch and just absorb his chakra and blasting through his head off, and whatnot. Now, which, the one thing you really can't forget is, like, the Susanoo even scales higher than this. Like, it even scales higher than this Nagato. So there are just so many avenues of victory for Itachi and Nagato, and just none for Hiruzen. Even if, like, Chibaku Tensei could come into play, or how about the Kodo Matsukami? I mean, we can't be, like, for real and say that Hiruzen is taking this. It's just not happening. Like, I love Hiruzen, but no, it's not happening. Last but certainly not least, we have Minato. Now, Minato is probably the most awkward of the four in terms of simply determining what state he is actually in. And when he actually arrives to fight Itachi and Nagato, like, the premise for this, if you guys remember, it's basically just that Orochimaru needs to send them out individually to cover ground and help the alliance, instead of, having them all go to Obito's battlefield. Then Itachi and Nagato just intercept them and try to hunt him down. So, does this mean Minato will be mentally nerfed or not? Well, probably not. We know that, once he gets to the battlefield, and even before that, when Hashirama was giving dialogue, his mental nerve wasn't really present, and was only actually coming about in chapter 637, where he just slashed open Obito. And this means that this Minato is very susceptible to these mental afflictions, as he's kind of near a breaking point after, because you gotta think, he's brought back just after what happened with the, his wife literally dying in front of him. And this could just be acted on by Itachi or Nagato. But if not, he will just remain at full power. A few ways they could act on this would be the Izanami or Genjutsu to make Minato see his failures, causing him to enter his stupor state. But even whilst dazed, Minato is certainly much weaker and slower than he is, but is still very powerful, once again being able to practically equal out Tobirama in some instances, with him being also able to match up and equal out and sync up perfectly, and just, match Tobirama and vice versa, with the narrative I mentioned earlier of just him being a greater caliber than KCM 1.5 Naruto and EMS Sasuke, also just applying here. This is very consistent with how Minato is also much more comparable to a Sage Mode KCM2 Naruto or a BSM Naruto whilst not in his stupor. So saying that he could just, just be under or close to Naruto's KCM2 state when nerfed, or just under, is also probably just below or near his base state, as when nerfed in KCM2 himself, he's relative to Tobirama, when previously Tobirama implied that Minato is just faster, with Minato also having the FTG for comparison, a technique that allows Minato and or Tobirama to enter a subspace and engage in an almost flight across space and time, moving from one marker to the next in a sort of point A to point B fashion, with the second databook fully corroborating this. The Guiding Thunder's databook entry supporting this alongside Minato's rhetoric when talking about the technique, using words like transfer and transport rather than teleport, and the instant wording just comes from people who don't understand the technique or are using mere hyperboles. This sort of adds a line of consistency to Minato just being so nerfed that in this state, he's probably not so comparable to his normal state, which through the FTG verbatim moves faster than Tobirama without KCM2, so him now going to like a KCM 1.5 Naruto level and then moving back up to a BSM level probably isn't that inconsistent. So this means that, if he's nerfed and Itachi could pull a Genjutsu off, then this match becomes a lot more contentious, similar to Tobirama. And so if you go with his interpretation, then by all means, take what I said with Tobirama's section and apply it here in terms of speed. Just just taking into account that Minato's delayed reaction and in random instances, and his Rasengan and techniques are just used much more in combination with the FTG, with Tobirama just not using that FTG technique like Minato does in character. However, if you think Minato doesn't get the mental affliction, then this is much closer to Hashirama in terms of just pure caliber, just based on him scaling to BSM Naruto, and some people do argue that the powerful support he provides still doesn't place him above KCM2 Naruto, as he is stated to be the greatest tag team in the series. However, this just doesn't follow with things like Kaguya and Zetsu or Madara and the Ten Tails, so this is either just referring to their chemistry, or it's just meaning the end of series Naruto and Kurama, and this is not actually the KCM2 that's actually being displayed. With this being said, if you still don't subscribe to this, BSM scaling, then by all means, just concede that he's certainly above KCM2 level in strength and speed. This is extremely important, as similar to Tobirama, there is a margin of error that can be presented due to the FTG and the ability to simply think to dodge certain attacks. However, even here, Minato's fighting style is much more reliant on the FTG, with him perfecting it and honing it to its maximum, where Tobirama focused on other ninjutsu and other ways of battling instead. Minato in character also typically does start his battles off with either just throwing several marked kunai to sort of lace the ground with his marks, or just using his body flicker to blitz the opponent off start, as implied by Bee, who states, quote, "First to bat, quite a smash, that was just like the yellow flash," and him also just immediately using this body flicker in Kakashi Gain to save him, with him then planting a seal on the Iwanen's foot. So now, if Minato does use either of these strategies, the second is much more viable, as the first one, Nagato can always just use Shinra Tensei, and just push them away, and just to kind of keep these marked kunai away from Itachi and himself, meaning that, these marked kunai are going to be hard to play on, and they could just become very handy for like dismantling the animal summons like how Itachi did, but just not for teleporting around the battlefield like he did in the Third War. But, Minato can teleport to them if they are put into the eyes and whatnot. Now, if he were to mark either Itachi or Nagato, this does become a huge problem, as yes, they can take lethal damage of the Edo Tensei, but the main thing is, if he cuts their head off, they're done for. So if his arm gets tagged and he subsequently gets blasted off or whatever, we don't really know if the mark would remain or not. It's sort of ambiguous. I will still say that I think Minato at his peak speed should still just be a tier above these characters, and if they don't use either Izanami, the Totsuka Blade, or Kodomatsu Kami, as these are their really only viable win cons, I think they could pull off these against a dazed Minato, which would result in them winning. And the reason I say this is the mental stupor requires a level of vigorous physical stimulation stimulated by others in Minato's case, and this is demonstrated as when he was actually just slower and delayed when fighting alongside Naruto and Sasuke when Tobirama was gone, but then once the pressure was all on him, he just instantly freezes up, as shown when he freezes up when Sasuke and Naruto were about to die, and Naruto had to save them with the exploding Truth Seeker Orb, with also just being placed on his shoulder. As you can see, he then just tries to react and move, but it's super delayed, and then only really reacts once again once Tobirama grabs it, still just staring off into space afterwards. So considering how the premise was laid out, Minato won't have anyone else there, so he could always just freeze up again, and Itachi could just pull one of those techniques off, or Minato would just get caught off guard with the Totsuka Blade. With this though, and Minato just being at a fair full power, then it's pretty much over for Itachi and Nagato, with Minato just having many different avenues of victory, such as Minato being able to seal them away, or counter large techniques. For example, while Casey and Minato never uses it, he is still capable of using Guiding Thunder, and he was actually going to use it in the war against the TSO, and you could always use it, you could always use it like on the core, the Chobaku Tensei or Itachi's Yasuko beads. This obviously does give him a huge advantage, as if the animal summons gave him a problem, he could always just seal, use a contract seal to separate them from Nagato, even if those large scale destructive jutsu, like say, even if I granted that Minato gets sucked up into Chobaku Tensei, or the Ashura path, the Ashura just fires lasers at him, FTG, that's it. He can just kind of teleport away and then come back. So in conclusion, I do think that Minato definitely wins if he's at full power, probably 8 or 9 out of 10 times. And if he's nerfed, I think it can honestly just go either way, depending on how you believe the stupor actually works. And I think he probably would just get beaten due to how he's virtually like Tobirama, but just delayed in reaction. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's the video. Please, if you guys did enjoy, these videos do take a lot of work and research, and this is literally my job. So it would help out a ton if you could subscribe, or if you learned something, or maybe just check out another one of my videos to see if you actually like my content. But anyway, have a good day. God bless. And as always, love you guys.